These words here are phrasal verbs, and as you can see, there are a lot of them. There are over 1,000 phrasal verbs, and new ones are invented on a regular basis. For example, when social media became a thing, we began to use phrasal verbs to help us talk about using platforms like Facebook or Instagram. First, you sign up, and then you log in to your IG account. But for people learning English, phrasal verbs can be annoyingly difficult to understand. First of all, you have the grammar to deal with. When you put the phrasal verb in a sentence, some phrasal verbs stay together. And some phrasal verbs need to be separated with the object in the middle. And some phrasal verbs can do both. So how do you know which ones need to stay together or which ones should be separated? There doesn't seem to be a clear system or any rules. Then there's the problem with meaning. Phrasal verbs look so simple. 2 words you absolutely know. But when you put them together in a sentence, then all of a sudden, things get confusing. Why does put off a meeting mean to postpone it? It just looks like the phrasal verb has been randomly put together, like someone just decided to describe postponing as put off, but for no reason at all. Why use put? Why use off? And then there's another problem, that one phrasal verb can have more than one meaning, and none of the meanings seem to relate to each other. For example, picked up can mean drive to a place in your car to get someone. But then it can also mean to learn some words of a foreign language.
Bonjour mesdames.
Bonjour.
Bonjour monsieur.
Bonjour. Bonjour.
Driving and learning are very different, so why do these actions use the same phrasal verb? It's because of these problems that many learners of English just avoid using them, preferring to use one-word synonyms instead. Postpone instead of put off. But at the same time, you must realize that these words are very important. 2 researchers called Dee Gardner and Mark Davis, both professors at Brigham University in America, discovered that they are used on average once in every 150 words in spoken English. And as the average person says 16,000 words a day, then they're going to be saying quite a lot of phrasal verbs. This could mean that if you have a long conversation with a native speaker, you're probably going to hear a lot of them. And they're not slang words either. They are everywhere in business reports, news articles, legal documents, signs and notices. So they're impossible to escape. But I'm not saying that English learners need to learn every single one of them and use them all the time, but they can't ignore them either. And today I'm here to help you understand them. I'm going to talk about where phrasal verbs get their meanings from, and I'm also going to talk about why one phrasal verb can have more than one meaning and how these meanings are connected. A phrasal verb is a verb that is used together with a particle or preposition. To understand them, we need to first look at their very basic literal meanings. So by literal, I mean the real or actual action that we perform. For example, if I say I picked up a pen, I'm using the literal meaning of picked up. My hand does this to the pen, which is picked, and then it moves like this, which is up. So this is the basic literal meaning of picked up. I could do it with other phrasal verbs. Here's me putting in. Here's me pushing down. And here's me blowing up. So from this basic literal action, we start to use phrasal verbs to talk about other things. Let's look at a video of my girlfriend being picked up in a car. So this time, I don't use my hand to pick up my girlfriend, and my girlfriend doesn't really go up. But there's just a similar feeling between the two actions. However, picking someone up in a car is no longer the literal meaning of picked up. We're using it in what we call a more figurative way. So if literal means real, then figurative means not real, but it feels like the real thing. Then there's another time we use picked up to talk about learning a language.
Bonjour mesdames.
Bonjour.
Bonjour monsieur.
Bonjour. Bonjour.
Bonjour. Bonjour. Bonjour. Bonjour. Now, this time, picked up is even more figurative. There's no physical action like driving a car, but just some kind of mental action. Because as you can see, all I'm doing here is listening to French, trying to understand it, and then I'm trying to use the words that I hear by myself. So if picking up a pen is literal, picking up someone in your car is figurative, while picking up a foreign language is even more figurative. But each time, picked up is connected to this literal action. Look at all three, and this is what they share. You don't have the person or the thing, but then you do some kind of an action, and then you have that person or thing, and you are in control of them, holding the pen, driving someone in your car, or speaking the words that you learnt and remembered. So picking up a pen feels similar to picking up a person in your car, and it also feels similar to picking up some words of a language. They are definitely not the same actions, but they have this similar feeling. Does that make sense? I think this is a good time to say that the more figurative the word is, the more difficult it is to understand. And this is because figurative words are usually used to talk about abstract things. So, there are two worlds that we live in: the physical, concrete world and the more mental, abstract world. It's easier for us to understand the physical, concrete world because we see it and experience it every day. So when I talk about the concrete world, as long as you know the meaning of the words, you will understand what I'm talking about. For example, if I said something really strange like, I punched the swimming pool, then as long as you know what punched and swimming pool mean, you can easily understand me. You might think, well, this guy's a weirdo, and I would agree, but you should get this image in your mind of me doing this. But the mental abstract world is much more difficult to understand, because then we're talking about things like love and relationships or feelings, and you can't see these things. It also makes thinking about and talking about these things a lot more difficult. Yes, we have words for abstract things like happy or sad to talk about our feelings, but we need to borrow a lot of vocabulary from the concrete world and use them figuratively to talk about things that are happening in our minds, like learning or understanding something. So to think about and talk about abstract things, we use our experience. Think about love. From the day you were born, you are with your mother and father, and they are close to you. They look after you, and you quickly begin to feel something for them. When they go away, it feels terrible, but when they're around you, you feel happy and safe. So we call this love. And from this, we use words from the concrete world to talk about love. And this means that we are conceptualizing love. So conceptualize means to talk about an abstract thing like it's a real concrete thing. So just like the baby who needs to be close to its mother and father, we think of love as being close to someone. So one way of talking about any loving relationship is to use words that express a close distance. My mother and I are really close. My wife and I have drifted apart. So basically, we have conceptualized a loving relationship as being close to that person, and a relationship that stops being a loving relationship as being away from that person. So figurative phrasal verbs also work on conceptualization. We conceptualize knowing a language as having it or possessing it like a real object. So picking up a language just makes sense to us. So let's have a look at some other figurative phrasal verbs and the concepts behind them. So value is how much people are willing to pay for something. We conceptualize value as being high or low, up or down. If it's higher, it's more. If it's lower, it's less. And we draw graphs showing how value changes. Just think about graphs from the stock market or Bitcoin and things like that. So if the value of my house went up, then it means the value increased because people are willing to pay me more money for it than they were willing to last year. So here's the important thing. It's the particle that you need to focus on to understand the meaning. So we could change the verb went to a similar verb like moved, and the meaning would still be the same. But if we change the particle, and now the sentence read, the value of my house went in this year, now the sentence has no meaning because we don't conceptualize value as in or out, but as up or down, higher and lower. So the key to understanding phrasal verbs is to look at the particle. Think about why that particle has been chosen. Let's think of a more difficult example. the band crossed over to pop music. So, pop music is one kind of music. And there are many other kinds, like rock, hip-hop, EDM, so we conceptualize different kinds of music as boxes. We hear a song, and then another song that sounds the same, and another song that sounds the same, and then we put that music in a mental box and call it rock. So some bands start off playing one kind of music and then change to a different kind. So when they're doing this, it's like they're changing from one box to another. And boxes have borders. So to move from one box to another box, they need to cross over. Here's a more literal example of crossing over a border, like when we move from one country to another. You can see all the countries are all in their boxes on the map, just divided by their borders. So when we talk of moving from one country to another, we talk about crossing over the border. So crossing over a border between two countries feels like crossing over the border between two kinds of music. The two actions are conceptualized in the same way. Once again, if we change the particle, it wouldn't make sense. Crossed under, crossed in, crossed up. The meaning comes from moving over from one box into another. So to summarize, the figurative meanings of a phrasal verb are connected to its literal meaning. Picking up a pen means you are in control of the pen and can use it as you want. Picking up some words of a language means you are in control of the words and can use them as you want. Secondly, we conceptualize abstract things by movement. Values move up or down, while different kinds of music are put in boxes, and we can move over from one kind of music to another. So here's what I advise you to do when you see a phrasal verb you don't know. Step 1. Look at the phrasal verb and the words around it. So look at this sentence. If you tell the police what I did, I'll take you down with me. In the first half of the sentence, we've got this word police. And it sounds like the speaker is worried that the other person is going to tell the police about something bad he did. Step 2. Think about the literal meaning of the phrasal verb. So take down is taking something from above you to a downward position. Now think about the literal meaning of take you down with me. It could be something like this, that one person is falling down into the water and they are taking the other person down with them. Look at the result. They are both in the water. Did either of them want to be in the water? No, they both didn't want to be in the water. Step 3. Think about the particle. So in this case, the particle is down. So do you think down is a good thing? Do you prefer to be up or down? So just by looking at the sentence, thinking about the literal meaning that both people are going down to a place that they don't want to be, then we know that the speaker has done a bad thing, maybe stolen something or even worse, so he's worried about the police. The police can arrest people and send them to jail. Taking someone down with them is not a good thing. So you still might not be able to put everything together. So basically the speaker is saying, if you tell the police what I did, I will tell them you helped me to do it, and then we will both go to jail. Hopefully, by thinking about the literal meaning of the phrasal verb and the particle itself, you can then understand why take someone down in this sentence has that meaning. And now you're going to be more likely to remember it, and the next time you see the phrasal verb take someone down, you're going to be more likely to understand it. To finish, I'm just going to leave 2 sentences for you to think about by yourselves. And if you already know the meaning of either phrasal verb, think about why it has that meaning, and please leave your ideas in the comments below. So that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I really hope that you got something from this video.